I always remember when I did not understand how I used to stand under all the fool's rules running these lands. I had my head in the sand and I was asleep. Not hide it no more. I'm a raconteur too. Yeah, I'm a raconteur too. Oh, I'm a raconteur too. Oh, the people in the chat room singing. Oh, I'm a raconteur too. One more time now. Oh, I'm a raconteur too.
Good evening. It's not Tuesday, is it? It's Monday night. It's 7 p.m. and it's Raconteurs News, and we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. We are live on Spreaker and also on YouTube Live. We're unable to do Facebook Live at the minute, but we will kind of try and get that back online at some point if we can. So welcome everybody. I hope you've had a fantastic weekend. Fantastic week since we last spoke to you. I'm joined tonight by my trusty sidekick. Now that Jason's laid up, Webby's the main man. So how you doing, Paul?
I'm good, mate. Just started my 2 weeks holidays, so I'm getting myself all refreshed and chilled out. All's good.
That's good to hear. So before we introduce the guest, I've got a question for you. Do you sleep on a flat bed?
Yes. Well, ish.
Man, long answer. Right.
It's one of those many things I have on my lists under, you know.
That's it. I know a lot of people who've got it on their list. Yeah, but it seems a hell of a job to convince people. But I shan't go into that. I'll bring the man on himself, the main man, the originator of incline bed therapy, the man who's helped people all across the world recover from what are supposedly incurable illnesses. Andrew Fletcher, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing okay, thanks. Yeah. It's nice to be back on our end again, and
always a pleasure to have you on, Andrew. You've got so much great information because it's not just the bed. You're always looking into different things, and you make discoveries. You find out things that other people have discovered and spread them around, and just a fount of information. You know, that's what people come to us for information that can help them with whatever their problem is. And if it's a health one, we seem to be doing quite good on that score, particularly with your help.
Yeah, it's such a long, complicated topic. Where do you start? It's been an incredible voyage, but there's a holy grail in science, and there's a holy grail in life, and that holy grail is life itself. So what's driving life? You know, what we're looking for is a non-living physical force that's making things live. So it's a bit like getting a motorbike going. Now, if you understand the mechanics of the motorbike, then getting it going is not a problem. But if you don't understand the mechanics, you don't want to hide into nothing. Yeah, especially if you've got a problem. So the body's a little bit like a broken motorbike, or in some cases a very souped up motorbike, but it's an engine, and it's understanding that engine and how the engine works. That's what's eluded everybody. I'm not trying to be arrogant, hopefully, but it's really important that we understand that force we all take for gravity that holds our feet firmly on the planet is actually driving all of our fluids around the body. Gravity is a massively underestimated force. Yeah, so, you know, the problem is that we all see gravity as like this mono attractive force, which acts, according to Galileo and his experiments off the Pisa, it acts equally on mass. Attractive force. You drop a feather, you drop a cannonball at the same speed, or you drop them in a vacuum, and they touch down on Earth at the same rate. But clearly that's not the case with fluids, and clearly not the case with gases. So any difference in density will result in a flow, and any flow will result in a return flow. So take the ocean currents. Now we've got the Atlantic conveyor, massive underwater river system that drives the world's weather and drives all the currents in the ocean, and it works on density changes. So the warm upflowing current evaporates a lot with the wind off the coast of Iceland and Greenland and northern parts of Alaska, and that evaporation cools the water, which changes the density, but also makes the sea saltier, and the salty water sinks. And for every action, there's a reaction. If you create a downward sink, you're going to create a return flow. And in the case of the ocean, there's no vessels. It's just a single sheet of water. So even that is capable of drawing water up from the equator and circulating the ocean currents. So just a change in density is driving the world's ocean currents. Now, we have a density change in our body as well. And this was all started by, I know you asked me to go over it again, and I'm sorry to bore people that have heard it all before. I'm awfully sorry. My wife's run for the bedroom, so she hasn't got to hear it again. So anyway, my discovery is exactly that. It's exactly that, is density changes drives circulation. So it all started by trying to understand how water got to the top of a tree. So as an engineer, I couldn't understand osmosis, capillary action, root pressure, all the new kid on the block, which is the cohesion tension theory. Now, root pressure is laughable. You know, you expect the roots to somehow squeeze water out the top of a Californian redwood, standing over 100 meters tall. It's never going to happen, is it? And the transpiration, that's fine. I have no problem with transpiration. 98% of all the water that comes through the roots evaporates through the leaves. So that's a fact. But then you have capillary action. Now, that's asking us to believe that the tree is a giant sponge and it can soak water 100 meters vertically all day long. It's never going to happen. It's a non-starter. Cohesion tension theory, its premise is that as one molecule evaporates due to evaporation at the leaf, it's sufficient to pull up a column of water 100 meters into the air. Absolutely ludicrous. No, absolutely ludicrous. So, okay, what really happens? Well, as I mentioned before, 98% of all the water evaporates through the leaves. Leaves produce sugars by converting carbon through photosynthesis. So that makes the sap at the top of the tree dense. The evaporation, its job is to make it denser. So gravity then pulls on the denser sap, drawing it down to the roots. And as the sap flows down the tree, it gets taken up in the tree's ever-increasing growth and girth. Old cells die, new cells are formed, and the tree continues to grow. So that's its sump, if you like. And any sap that actually makes it to the roots is rediluted by water coming in from the soil. So the upward flow in the xylem is always going to be more dilute than the downward flow in the phloem. So it changed the density, and we produce a flow and return system capable of lifting water 100 meters up into the air, over 100 meters tall. To test this, I set up an experiment in Brixham originally with a 6mm bore tube using just water. and tested the siphon effect. And the heights I was dealing with was sort of over 15 meters in the air. So I found that the siphon was failing. It was causing water to bubble out of the air gas to bubble out of the water. So I said, well, okay, we need to degas the water. So I boiled it and then repeated the test, and still had a problem with the siphon effect. So, and I thought to myself, well, you know, if it is a siphon, then you're going to need roots with some roots are lower than other roots, and the roots that are lower, they're going to have the downward flowing sap, and the roots that are higher are going to have the upward flowing sap, and that doesn't fit with what we see in trees. So there had to be a new phenomenon, and all this took about 20 minutes to work out after realizing that a wholly inadequate explanation for fluid transport in trees in GCSE biology by D.G. McKean. So I deduced that for this to work, there would have to be a change in density. And I set this up then out by adding 50 milliliters of coloured salt solution to the centre of the tube. The tube was 48 meters long and 6 millimeter bore, clear plastics, the stuff you use in the brewery, in the pub trade, in cellars. The two open ends were put into 2 bottles of water, which were filled with degassed water, which is boiled water. And the whole of the loop of tubing was filled with boiled water, degassed water. Then the 50 milliliters was added to the centre of the tube, and that was raised 24 meters vertically up a cliff in Brixham. Now, the laws of physics say it's not possible in a single open-ended tube to go above 10 meters. Well, clearly they got that wrong. There it was, standing in front of everybody. I had Forestry Commission scientists there, journalists there, Kindred Spirit magazine was there, the local press were there, and water was flowing from one bottle up the cliff to 24 meters and down the other side to the other bottle, causing one bottle to overflow and the other bottle to go down, and demolished the 300-year-old misconception that water under normal atmospheric pressure in a single open-ended tube is limited to 10 meters. They got that wrong, big style. Yeah. So that experiment should have been my own and my own alone, but 3 doctors have taken it on board to publish my experiment in Nature, in the journal, and no reference to myself or my work. And indeed, they contacted me prior to publishing it. But nevertheless, at least it's in there in Nature, because they refused to publish my work. But because it was 3 doctors, they now felt it was okay to publish it in their names. There's a corrigendum on the paper, which is called the height limit of a siphon, and the corrigendum reads that they relied on my experiments.
It takes me to a thing that Nikola Tesla once said about that science had taken a very dangerous turn, and they headed off into theoretical science rather than doing experiments like what you've just said you did. And if it physically works, then, you know, it doesn't matter about theories as much. Do you know what I mean?
It trashes theories.
Yeah, the thing with theories is it's all well and good, especially mathematics. I've said many a time about an elephant hanging off a cliff with its tail tied to a daisy. But if you're going to try that experiment, you're going to have a dead elephant. And that's what we need is scientists like yourself who are actually physically doing experiments and showing what can work.
Thanks. Yeah, I actually agree wholeheartedly with that. That we've see the problem with scientists is they need to produce, to become a scientist or to become a doctor or a physiologist, they need to produce an original piece of research. Now, it's a bit difficult to come up with something off the cuff that's 100% new. So they start gazing into space and they come up with these ridiculous theories like black holes and boson whatevers, and yeah. But they do this because nobody can disprove them.
Yeah,
because it's billions of light years away. It happened billions of light years ago. This is how the Earth formed. For example, they talk about how old the Earth is. Now, to do that, they measure the rock, and how old's the rock? How many times has that rock been down to the Earth's core, melted down, and returned back to the Earth's surface? How many times? So you cannot draw the conclusion that the Earth is 4 billion years old based on a rock that you've measured on the surface of the Earth. To actually measure that, you'd have to measure the core of the Earth.
There's a lot of so-called facts that we're taught that are being, overturned these days. Everything, things are changing quite rapidly, I find, Andrew.
Yeah. Yeah, the old theories are going out with the washing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after you developed that and you understood these mechanics, what then led you to saying about raising the bed, and what instances have you got that you can tell us about?
Well, that was the next step, which was really interesting, because I'd realised that we were dealing with a powerful force, as I said at the introduction, a non-living physical force that can actually drive things. It doesn't need to be wound up. They're going about there's no such thing as a perpetual motion machine. Now here we are all walking around in perpetual motion. We can pick food up and stick it in our mouths. We can hunt it, cook it. That's perpetual. So the very people that are saying you can't have perpetual motion are actually practicing perpetual motion. Yeah. The trees growing in the woodlands, they're growing perpetually.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to the discovery. See, I realised straight away that this non-living physical force would have no respect for where it occurred. In other words, whatever stood above ground level and evaporated most of the water from the top end is going to produce a flow and return system, providing there's something with weight in the liquids, which blood's got iron in, we've got minerals in, calcium. So the evaporation from the blood has to change the density of the blood. Now, you won't find that in the literature. That's absolutely bizarre, because you cannot evaporate water from the lungs without it affecting the blood that supplies the lungs, because that water has to come from somewhere. Therefore, the blood exiting the lungs is always going to be more dense than the blood entering the lungs. And I did find the paper on this. It was a paper on the dog's lung. So, and yet you can go in any physiology book and you won't find it there. And that's a very important mistake, right? Because now posture is making a big heap of difference, right? Because now lying on a flat bed doesn't make any sense at all. Now, back to the circulation, evaporation from the respiratory tract, changes the density of the blood that passes through the lungs. That blood goes through the heart, and then the heart injects it back into the main artery. It's equivalent to placing a pinch of salt in the arterial tree for every breath we take. So we're releasing a pulse of dense blood down the main artery towards the kidneys for every breath we take, providing we're standing upright, or we're sitting correctly, or we're on an incline bed. If we're horizontal, then gravity is running perpendicular to all of the vessels, so it will still be acting on the density changes, but it will be acting as a brake instead. It will be pressing the denser blood down to the bottom of the vessels. And that's why when we lie down, we get tired and we go to sleep. That's why animals lie down and they go to sleep, because it slows everything down. Yeah?
Yeah.
So anyway, how could we test this? And I thought, well, straight away that the flatbed doesn't make any sense now. So I raised our own bed up at the head end on a bit of a whim. It was a bit of a hit and miss at the time. And I went down to a guy called Leon Corral down a pocket bookshop in Winner Street locally. And I was telling him all about this discovery. And he was very excited, but so was a nurse who was listening in on the conversation. And she said, what you've just said about circulation is fascinating. She said, I don't really butt into people's conversations, but this one just makes so much truth. She said, I've known, and we've all known for years, that the elderly patients, the ones that choose to spend a long time in bed, they don't last long. But all the ones that get up and are active and sit up and refuse to lie down, if they do lie down, they're only down for a few hours. They're the ones that live. They just keep going. So that made sense to her. And she said, I wonder what it would be like for varicose veins. And I hadn't even thought about varicose veins, but what we had noticed was that walking up the hillside, which is local to us, Winner Hill, our legs would ache. And there's a bench halfway up, and we'd pause there with the shopping. And, you know, that you'd get some rest, and then you'd carry on. And everybody did it. Everybody stopped at the bench. That's why the bench was there. But recently, without knowing, that we were walking from top to bottom, and we didn't appear to be stopping. And I hadn't realised that was going on. Felt different. Felt we had more energy. Felt like there was a lot changing, but at the time you just think, well, am I imagining all this? You know, is just my imagination? So anyway,
Feeling better. You're feeling better at the end of the day, aren't you?
yeah, but I had to look at my wife's leg because she had a varicose vein that's been there for 16 years, and that used to knot up and it used to cause us pain. And that's one of the reasons we stopped on that walk up the hill. And because Stephanie Ness had mentioned the veins, I found that Jude's vein over a period of 4 weeks only had gone flat.
Wow.
Now, the medical profession is saying, raise your legs up. We've done the opposite. We've lowered the legs and it's worked. You know, so anyway, I went back to the pocket bookshop talking to Leon, and this nurse come in again. I mean, she must have lived close and seen me going to the bookshop. And she was telling me all about how she'd been noticing differences about aching and waking up feeling more refreshed. And she mentioned also, and I forgot to mention this in previous shows, that the half moons on your fingernails can tell you a lot about your health. Yeah. If you've got half moons on all your fingernails, generally that's a really good sign. But at least 8 and you're still great. But if you're starting and you're looking at your fingernails and there's maybe 1 or 2 half moons on your fingernails, then that usually is an indication that there's something wrong with your circulation. And she was also a palmist, and she told me that that's, you know, when they read the lines, your lifelines and all that, really they're looking at the backs of your hands for your fingernails. Yeah, because it tells you a lot about your circulation. So yeah, and then she said, well, my varicose veins have gone flat, and she said this is going to be really useful for all the girls at the hospital, because they're always on the feet all day, and a lot of nurses suffer with varicose veins.
Mm.
You know, so that was where it all started anyway. And as I've said before, I was walking around the streets looking at women's legs for all the wrong reasons.
Well, really, I'd just like to relate how we actually got introduced to you, because that for me is a fantastic story in itself. Because it was back in the early, I think you actually first came on the show back when it was Enemy Within, didn't you, Andrew?
Yes.
And there's a gentleman called Dave who been friends with for quite a while, and he said, you need to speak to this guy. And we got in touch with you, and we did a show with you, and it changed our lives for the better in a big way. I was suffering from sciatica. My sciatica had been with me for more or less a decade, and I raised the bed 3 inches, didn't notice that much difference, kept it that way for a week, raised it a further 3 inches, and then suddenly my sciatica was gone, just like overnight. And I just got this strange feeling when I woke up in the morning, didn't know what it was. I thought, this is a bit weird. And I realized that I was waking up feeling refreshed, which had never happened to me. I can't remember it ever happening before. Even like as a teenager, I used to wake up tired. So that was just amazing to me. And I started trying to tell people. But then a little while later, we found out that Dave was seriously ill. He was diagnosed with a condition which was terminal. They sent him home to die. We had a word with a few people, made a few connections, and Dave's still here. He didn't die. So the National Alarm Service didn't get away with him. We managed to sort his problem out. So what goes around seems to come around. I mean, are you finding a lot of that sort of thing happening, Andrew?
Yeah. The problem I have is that people will go away and sit on it, and nobody ever complains about feeling better. No. So they forget all about the problems, and they forget all about the bed. They don't even know there's blocks under the bed at the end of the day. Yeah. So that mission accomplished. That's done a great job. But quite a few people do come back, and they do put testimonials on the website. That's really important because that's how people find us.
What is your website address, Andrew?
It's called inclinedbedtherapy.com.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of testimonials there. The interesting thing is that you're looking at varicose veins, and you're trying to set up a study into varicose veins. And I was a real novice at the time because I hadn't got any knowledge of how biased and how corrupt the whole system is. The science is just well, if you can excuse a French word, it's bollocks.
Yeah.
Right. Most of it is bollocks. And I remember watching an Open University program because I used to digest loads and loads and loads of the Open University programs.
Yeah.
For no other reason than I really loved the research. Yeah. And they interviewed a lady, and I think that the program, this particular episode, is called "The Trouble with Science." And they interviewed a doctor, and she was a young doctor, and they said, "What do you think the problem with science is?" And she turned around and said exactly that. It's all bollocks on an Open University program. So, and again, that's a seed that was sown all those years ago.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. Yeah.
Well, I've followed a similar route with all the mortgage banking stuff and everything because my mum ran her own businesses. She told me how the banking system works, and I've had to unlearn all that to actually learn how it actually works. And people are screwed over in banking, in the judiciary. Everything is all wrong. There's a quote, I can't remember it verbatim, about teachers destroy education, doctors destroy health. It's like everything has been inverted.
Yeah.
And it's only when you actually have got a passion and you do that research and you come together with an absolute, an operating mechanical model to demonstrate what you're saying. You didn't need a massive amount of numbers and letters and algebra to say that's what that means. Look, there it is, it works.
But the thing is, for the cohesion tension theory and all of the other debunked models in cohesion in tree transport, fluid sap transport in trees, they did have those numbers.
Yeah.
And they proved that they were right, and now they're wrong.
I love that. It is so amazing to just come across something that nobody's even thought about for hundreds of years. We all sleep on a flat bed. Why do we sleep on a flat bed? Just because that's the way beds are made. So we're actually relying on something that's very important for our health. We're relying on what joiners do, and probably joiners aren't the best people to rely on to improve your health. So you've now discovered what you discovered about incline bed. I mean, surely there must be somebody out there, an entrepreneur, who's thought about making an incline bed. Have you not come across anyone yet, Andrew?
I used to make incline beds.
Right.
Yeah, but the advertising standards agency got in touch with me and said you can't advertise these beds because you can't tell people what these beds do, because you would need to conduct double placebo-based controlled studies, double-blind studies, and pay doctors and nurses to do these studies and to prove that you're right before we can say. And I said, well, okay, then how does that apply to the flatbed? Where were all the studies that did the flatbed?
Yeah.
And they said, well, yeah, but this is new. This is a new concept. I said, actually, it's not new at all. It's been around for thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians slept on incline beds.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think most people are familiar with the pictures you see of the beds that were brought out of the Egyptian tombs, and they certainly they had a slope on them. And I believe you got someone in a museum to measure that for you, didn't you?
I did indeed, yeah, Boston Museum. Queen Atefras, forgive me if I got the pronunciation wrong, and they measured the bed, and it was exactly a 5-degree angle. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, we've got a new convert. I've just seen that Tony, who's in the chat on YouTube, he's not afraid to give these ideas a chance, as I'm finding all the old anecdotes of our grannies told us about holistic health options, that the government and big pharma rubbish and attack are really the truth. I mean, that's the weird thing about this one, because if you were to sell somebody something for 50 quid or 100 quid or 1,000 quid, they use it. But because you're giving them this information free and for gratis, people don't see the value of it. People don't see the value of something that costs nothing.
Well, they'd rather pay like $2.5 grand for a bed with a memory foam mattress that remembers that you slept flat, even though it hugged all your contours. It's something that honestly, Andrew, people wouldn't think about. People I know would not even think about researching anything like that. So, because when Andy brought it up to me, I thought, well, I remember the bed being inclined after I snapped it by jumping on it when I was a kid, but I don't remember having the benefits of it. So I thought, I've got to hear more about this. And it's now making sense about the density and the buoyancy of the action that is going on here. Because we are in an interactive reality. It's not just, solid objects that don't interact with. Everything is moving perpetually, as you were saying.
Yeah.
I picked up a little from the chat from Tony, and his first time he saw inclined beds was on Babylon 5. He said the Minbari slept on inclined beds. Horizontal beds mimic the death state. Now, truth in sci-fi.
Yes.
Who'd have thunk, huh?
Well, the on about the flatbed mimicking death. There's if you go back in ancient times, I think it was ancient India, they used to bury people with the knees up in the air, so curled up. And the reason they did that was because that's the position they died in, and it was called the death pose. Now, I had an unfortunate occasion of looking in a refrigerator with 3 dead ladies. All 3 of them were lying on the backs with the knees up in the air on a flatbed.
Yeah.
And I asked the guy, the undertaker, I said, look, why are they in this position? He said, that's a really common posture for people that have died.
Wow.
So, and again, that we've all done it as kids, curl up and put your arms around your knees and got into that fetal position.
Yeah.
Yeah. So posture's really important. I mean, what we found is that if we lie on our sides on the sloping bed and just have a slight bend in the knees, that relaxes all the tendons and muscles.
Mm.
So that can be beneficial as well for circulation. So just a little bit of a kink in the knees. But if you have your legs stretched out flat, right, straight down, then what that does, it tends to tighten up the leg muscles, the calf muscles. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can feel a bit stiff in the morning if you do this. We do this. Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, but joking aside, with that as well, yes. Yes, we've had reports of that as well.
And on that note, I think we can bring young Jason in. How are you doing, young man?
Hi, Jace.
Evening, boys. How are we doing?
How are you?
Can you back off from your mic touch, Jace?
I'll just turn it down a bit. How's that?
That's better, man. Yeah.
How are we doing?
I'm doing okay.
I'm good.
We're doing very well. I think more to the point, everybody's wanting to know how you're doing, fella.
Yeah. Oh, well, as everybody knows, I had an operation back on May the 8th in my leg, an angioplasty, which was really, it's been botched, let's just say. And I've not been able to walk ever since. And I've been going back and forth to the hospital. They keep saying things like, "Oh, it's all right. It's not in any danger." The last time I went back, they said the foot's not in any danger. It's not under threat. And then I went last week to see the specialist, and he said the only thing the viable thing that we can do now is to amputate it. So that's what's going to be happening this week. Is I'm going to have my left leg amputated. Probably Thursday or Friday. I don't know exactly when, but so everyone's up to date. I just wanted to let people know, because I know there's people that have been wondering what's been going on and where I am and what have you. But like I say, it's for me, it's an end to things. It's an end to all the pain. It's an end to. I'll be able to adapt. I'll be able to learn to walk on a prosthetic. I've got a wheelchair. I've got a mobility scooter. I'm just going to have to deal with it just the best way that I possibly can. So it's just one of them things. Shit happens. It just always happens to me, it seems.
Well, Jason, an angioplasty is a balloon inside the vessel.
That's right.
Inflate, yeah?
Yeah.
That's not going to put any permanent opening in a vessel. That's just going to be a temporary temporary change.
No, they put a stent in as well afterwards.
Oh, okay. So they did a stent.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So top and bottom it is it's coming off, and there's not really we can do about it. So sitting about moping about it and being all upset and thinking, "Fucking hell, I'm a spastic already." As far as I'm concerned, the hospital have done this. They've not done the due diligence. It's just been a botch up from start to finish. So that's me. So I won't be about for probably a couple of weeks, but hopefully I'll be back and we can start the Ren and Stumpy show.
Couldn't you get a second and third and fourth opinion, Jace?
I've had the thing is I've had that many opinions that I'm just lost with it. I'm just lost with it. You know, it's just I just can't. I want an end to it, and I just can't see an end to it whilst it's hanging on there. They said to me there was an alternative. The alternative was to have a bypass. Now, with the APS, the antiphospholipid syndrome, when they stented up my left leg, it immediately occluded again. It immediately blocked up again. So a bypass would probably just do the same, because that's just with the APS, it's probably just going to block up again. And once they've done the bypass, they'd if it knackered up, then they've got to amputate it anyway. But before that, preceding that though, Andrew, which is what's made me just go for the amputation straight away, is that my leg won't straighten up. My left leg won't straighten up since I've had this operation, and they said that it will never straighten up. It will never straighten up again, and I probably won't walk again. So my best chance of walking again is to have a prosthetic limb and to do it that way. And I know it seems drastic, and I know it seems, and believe me, in this house we've had nothing but, I mean, I found this out last Wednesday, and we've had nothing.
Well,
we've had no but tears and just that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah. When I first found out, I was in bits. I'll admit it. But what I will say to anyone who's thinking, how the hell's Jason coping with this? How's he managing to be so cheerful? Your state of mind, actually, you seem more upbeat, and you seem more like you've got an end in sight, a bit of light at the end of the tunnel since this decision's been made that you're going to have your leg off, because you've got something you can actually look forward to. And I was amazed when I first spoke to you after you'd made this decision, and you seemed far more positive than you had done since before your operation, really. And I can only take my hat off to you, and I think you've got balls the size of space operas, mate. I really admire your courage in this.
Me too.
Yeah, well, like you said, Andy, listen, I know you have tears, and like I just did then, just like it just suddenly comes over you. And I know that that's going to happen, and I know that there's going to be. I know there's times where because I'm downstairs permanently, so I'm sleeping on settee, which means that that I'm downstairs. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm in constant pain. I usually get about an hour, 2 hours sleep at a time, and then probably be lying awake. And when you're lying awake in the dead of the night, right in the middle, and there's nothing going on, and it's sort of 3 o'clock in the morning, and you can't hear anything, that's the time when it starts going round in your head, and you start to think about things. You start to realize that the things that you're never going to do again. There are things that there are things you think of, the things that you're going to miss out on, and just simple things like when you go on holiday, going in swimming pool and things like. I know I can go in and like I'll be able to go in and frighten all kids with my stump and everything, and that'll probably be a blast. But it's just them little things, and you've got to try and keep on top of it, because if you don't keep on top of it, it's just gonna, if I get depressed, if I'm all depressed and I'm like, oh fucking woe betide me, whatever's happened to me, oh God, and then that sort of drains out, and then my wife gets, because my wife's looking off work, she's looking after me, my wife's going to start getting depressed. It's going to affect her. It's going to affect everybody, everybody who cares about me, everyone who comes around to see me, everyone who's been helping me. It's going to affect everyone. So I've got to stay positive, because I think it's important anyway to stay positive. I think it's important in any recovery, no matter what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. Do you think you should incline your sofa then, Jason?
Already done it, mate. Already done it.
I'm just absolutely gutted that that there's nothing that can be done for that. I'm lost for words, Joyce.
Yeah, well,
you see, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, mate.
I was just going to say, Andrew, the thing is, Andrew, is that every time I go under the knife, it's really risky. It's really the condition that I've got, the antiphospholipid syndrome. They're really scared to do anything with when you've got that syndrome, and it's just. There would be alternatives, but do I go through 3 operations to end up with no leg, or do I just have the one operation? Let's get it over and done with. Let's get me on a prosthetic by Christmas, hopefully. I know that's probably rushing it a bit, but
Jason, that syndrome. What condition is it?
It's antiphospholipid syndrome. It's called Hughes syndrome. It used to be called sticky blood syndrome. And what it is that your blood, the antibodies in your blood, instead of attacking the bad things that are in your system, it attacks everything. And then they get really big because they're consuming things. These antibodies get really big, and then it makes your blood really clotty and thick. And it's really rare. I mean, there's only 95% of people that have got it are women. Now, but you see that the problem is they don't test anybody for it. Nobody gets tested for it, and it's thought that a lot of cardiac deaths in under 40s are down to antiphospholipid syndrome, and which I can vouch to because I never knew I had it until 2012, but I still had an heart attack in 1997. You know, and
I was just going to say, did they? Had you not noticed it when you was a kid or anything like that? It's just something that built up, did it?
No, it's just been there all the time.
Wow.
I've just been either lucky or unlucky, depending on where you sit.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that does explain. I've had over the course of my life, I've had quite a few mates who've died of heart attacks in their 30s. And I could never make any sense of it. But now you say that nobody ever gets tested for it, and that may well be the cause of it. It kind of does make sense to that for me. Yeah.
Is there a test for it?
Sorry?
Can they test for it?
Yeah, they can test for it. Yeah, they do test for it. You see, that this is the anomaly in it, is that 95% of people with antiphospholipid or diagnosed with antiphospholipid syndrome are women, are female. Now, the reason for that is they will test for antiphospholipid syndrome once a woman's had multiple miscarriages. They will test then, but they don't just test willy-nilly. And it was I don't know if you do know, but I went to see a doctor as part of the case that I went for the clinical negligence. And it was one of the doctors that looked at my notes, one of the private doctors that was looking at my notes during one of the meetings that we had. And he said to somebody else, I've noticed these numbers, and I think that these numbers mean that he's got this, whatever. And he wrote to my consultant at the time, and my consultant then had me in. I was tested twice. He said I have to be tested twice independently, like 2 weeks apart. So I tested twice, and then I were diagnosed with it. So it's difficult for people, it's particularly blokes. You know, if you're unlucky enough to have it, and you don't get to find out that you've got it, then probably the first time anybody knows you've got it is when you keel over at a young age.
What would be the treatment for that if they did discover it, Jason? Would it be like warfarin or something like that?
Warfarin, yeah. Blood thinners.
That's amazing. But there again, if you start looking at how all this starts to fit together, if they're not going to have people with heart problems, then they're not going to get any business. They're not going to make money hand over fist like what they're doing. But for something like that, that test would be classed, because you said there's not many people got it. That test is going to be classed as not worth spending the money on, isn't it?
I think when I was diagnosed, I think that it was a woman that diagnosed me. She said, in all our area, Yorkshire, she said she knew of only 3 cases of it, or 3 other cases.
Wow.
But if they're not testing, that's the reason there's only 3 other cases. You know, if they were testing men as many times as they were testing women, then perhaps that imbalance wouldn't be as skewed.
Yeah, I read up on it when we first came up against this issue of you look like you might lose in your leg, Jason. And I was astonished to find that it's mostly women that have it, and indeed they wait for multiple miscarriages before they even do the test. I thought that was astonishing, but then I thought, hang on, you've been looking at the health service through a bit of a magnifying glass for quite a few years now, and it seems that every few weeks you get another story of somebody who didn't get what they ought to get because, well, we just don't do that. It really beggars belief, but it is what it is. And there's been some really kind words posted in the chat room. There's Carl Davis is in there. There's Tony. Thanks for joining us, Tony. Tony's, I believe, been introduced by Dinny. And Tony was saying that he's reduced a tumour in his neck by 95%.
Wow.
Using CBD, THC, and diet.
Well done.
That's great news, Tony. Didn't he actually show me some photographs of what you've done there? Absolutely fabulous work, fella. And he's saying, you're still you, Jason. Just carry on. And, you know, he said when he got his cancer diagnosis, it felt like the end of the world. But you just got to keep buggering in, mate. And you're still you. You've still got your personality, yourself. Unfortunately, you're going to be a bit of one of your legs short, but you're still you, man.
Never mind. It's a good way to lose weight.
You don't need to. If you lose more bloody weight, you'll disappear.
I had a friend who lost a leg through cancer, and he was feeling sorry for himself and wasn't expecting any of it. Good friend. He died very young, and he says, I'll never be able to drive again. I says, well, how many legs do you need for an automatic car? You only need one, don't you?
Mm.
Yeah,
That's right.
There's a lot of adoptions.
that got him thinking. And my parting shot across the bows for him was, I says, your feet are not going to be smelling half as bad. I know. Yeah, but that sort of, it's probably my inability to cope with seeing him in the hospital and going through what he did. He was only in his 20s, you know, when we lost him. But that short, sharp shock stopped him feeling sorry for himself, and he got himself an automatic car. He got out of the hospital, you know, and he had a few years. He had a few good years. But he'd given up when I met him. So
it's amazing. It's amazing to think, though, how much is being suppressed over stuff, especially to do with, as you brought cancer up there, because of, you know, you look at the Cancer Act, that nobody can come up with these cures because, as you said, you've not got letters after your name. You can't identify this as working, and that's the problem that we've got.
yeah, well, one of the problems.
Yeah, one of many.
Yeah, I still think you should get more opinions, Jace.
Well, I mean, I've got a race against time, haven't I? I mean, what do I do? Do I keep asking until? I mean, if you saw my foot, it's a huge mess.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw Jason's foot when I went up to see him last week, and I believe you said if the foot turns septic, then that's kind of a real emergency, and it needs to be chopped off straight away. Otherwise, it's going to kill you, doesn't it?
Mm.
right. Okay, now I understand better, Jace.
Mm.
Yeah, it's all right going about a pit. I'd love to have time to be able to go and get second, third, fourth, fifth opinion. But yeah, it's for best anyway. Chins up.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks for coming on to bring everybody up to speed on that, because I really fancy doing the job, Jason.
You did a good job there, Jace.
But did you watch that Peter Cook and Dudley Moore sketch I sent you the other night?
No, I didn't know.
About one leg too many. No. Well, maybe you can watch that some other time. It is funny as hell, though. But so I guess we ought to get back to the incline bed, really, because it kind of a bit hard to follow. Unless you've got anything more you want to say, Jason, obviously.
No, mate, no, that's fine. I'll just keep you on in background and listen in.
You hang about as long as you want, mate, or drop off. That's entirely up to you. What I wanted to ask Andrew about is there's even more benefits have been discovered recently by one of the people who's on your Facebook group, I believe.
Yes, and yeah, it's an avenue that I wanted to look into. I've mentioned before that I helped a girl with cerebral palsy to walk again, or to walk for the first time in 12 years. She never walked. and we tilted the bed. It took about 8 or 9 months to bring about that change, but that was the brain was actually responding in some way. And then more recently, there was a young lad with an enlarged dysfunction in pituitary gland who was left paralyzed. Again, that was a medical blunder. And he was told that he'd never walk again. Right? He had very limited movement in arms and hands and legs, and tilted the bed, and it got him fully functional. So again, that the brain is obviously benefiting in some way from posture and circulation or gravity. So anyway, recently, well, back before that, there was a lady with multiple sclerosis in the first pilot study I ever did. And she said, I don't know whether this is relevant, but if I wanted to do something and walk to the door, by the time I got to the door, I would have forgotten what it was that I wanted to do. And no way would I be able to recall that thought was gone. And she said that's still happening since I've raised the bed. She said, I'll still forget, but within a minute, I'm able to recall it. So that's short-term memory restored, yeah? And I just filed that one away. It's actually mentioned in the raised bed survey, which is an independent report on multiple sclerosis, which is on my website. So all the stats are there. So that mention of memory is in there. And more recently, I've been talking to a good friend of mine who's putting on a testimonial shortly, and we were talking about memories flooding back from early childhood, ridiculously early childhood. Mm-hmm. And for him, is actually going back to points in time that he should not even be aware of, like the look of the room that he was sort of a baby in, an infant in.
Yeah.
And he could look around and he could remember who was there and what was there, and which is absolutely incredible. And I was remembering stuff as well. I was remembering, like, a teacher forcing me to stay in my seat when I told her I needed to go to the toilet, and breaking down crying, saying I wanted to go to the toilet, and she made me stay there. I ended up crapping myself as a kid. Yeah. That's come back, yeah. And there's been lots of little memories that have been creeping back. Now, this is really important because a huge amount of people now are going down, getting the label dementia. Could this help people with dementia? I actually believe it could. But we've had a recent testimonial come. This lady, very good friend on my Facebook group, and she said that she suffered with partial amnesia. So that's memories that have actually gone. It's never coming back, and this has been for many, many years, and she's got all those memories back. So again, there's something else there that warrants a study, but that study will probably never take place in my lifetime. But hopefully somebody watching this show will think, well, hang on, I'm seeing what's happening with somebody in my family. Maybe we could prop the bed up and see what happens.
Mm. Well, on the multiple sclerosis thing, I mean, I was astonished when you told me what effect it had on people. And I suppose if I'm 100% honest, I was maybe a little bit skeptical of the claims. And I thought, can that really be true? Until I was approached by someone in the street outside a cinema, and he says, "Hey, you're that bloke off the radio, aren't you?" And I went, "Yeah." I was gobsmacked. I've never been recognised in public till then. And this guy, he said, "Oh, no." He said, "I want to thank you." I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, my wife has got MS, and she used to be taking a carrier bag full of meds. She was in constant pain, and she always had to walk with crutches or in a wheelchair. And he said, we inclined the bed, and now she takes no meds, she's got no pain, and she's either running, swimming, or in the gym every day. And I'm like, wow. So I thought, right, okay, my brother-in-law's got MS. Got to point this out. They don't want to know. I'm the mad one, you see. I'm the black sheep in the family. I've got all these crazy ideas, like 9/11 was an inside job, and
Banks lend money.
banks lend money, cancer's curable, all kinds of crazy shit like that. And it's just, we'll try it, boy. And nobody's ever done anything about it, so he's still suffering. But that's incredible. So really, I mean, that's got me thinking about is MS is a neurological condition. So therefore, whatever is operating your nervous system, whether it's this big grey lump in your head or whatever it is, I mean, I'm becoming more and more convinced that consciousness is non-local. Consciousness does not sit inside this thing we've got on top of our shoulders. It's something that we somehow manage to connect to as individuals, whether it's a group consciousness or there's individual consciousnesses that we all connect to our own. But it seems that sleeping on an incline somehow improves the function of whatever it is that makes your nervous system work, because we've got people with multiple sclerosis who suddenly the symptoms go away. We've got people with memory loss who regain that memory when they didn't think there was any realistic possibility. I mean, I don't know how the hell you're going to go about proving that improvement, but it does seem to me quite obvious from the accounts that I've been given by folks who've tried it and found success with it, that there is something going on there. I mean, for me, we had a discussion about this around your kitchen table, Andrew.
Yes.
I came to visit you and
Yes.
thank you for the help that you've done me. And it's something you've never really talked about before, but I believe that I can't prove it, but my thinking has become a lot clearer.
Yes.
I'm able to think in a clearer manner than when I slept on a flat bed. And it seems that when you talk to other people who've tried this for a period of time, they go, oh, yeah, I never thought about that. But yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I'm thinking clearer.
Yes. No, that's really, I reckon, right? And again, to prove this, you'd have to go back and have a look at a few papers, which we have done over the years. And there's one in particular called the radiator theory by Dean Falk. And she showed that, because we're dealing with the way circulation's been rerouted when we've tilted the bed, and in fact when we stood up, when we used to walk around on all fours, right? This is Falk's discovery. She examined the skulls of early hominids when we walked on all fours, and there's foraminae, which are holes in the back of the skull, which carried the blood from and to the brain. Yeah. And then when we stood up, those holes had moved around to the top of the head. So that standing up had completely changed our circulation in our brain.
Right.
That's huge. Now, Michel Cabernac, University of Laval, Quebec, Canada, again from the Open Universities I watched, he discovered that if you place a Doppler probe, which measures the direction of blood flow where the eye meets the nose, yeah, and shows normal blood flow from the skin, from the brain out to the skin, yeah. He then puts a person, a volunteer, on an exercise cycle, gets them to overheat on the exercise cycle, places the Doppler probe back. Now the blood flow is going back in the opposite direction. It's going from the skin through to the brain. Now there are no valves and it's doing that against the alleged pressure from the heart. So what has changed the direction? The brain cannot think and change the direction of the blood flow. Not possible, right? There's no valve that the brain can operate to change the direction. So I put it to Cabernac that the extra heat evaporation from the exercise cycle was actually changing the density of the blood. So when that denser blood flowed over the T-junctions, instead of flowing straight across, it took the shortest route down through the brain.
Makes sense.
So it's, yeah. So he said that he was going to mention this in a future paper. Never happened, right? But he was really interested in that, because the only theory they come up with is that the brain somehow decides to cool itself down and it can reroute the blood, but no mechanism for it rerouting the blood has ever been put forward.
Oh, wow. That's astonishing, Andrew. I mean, I've just noticed the time. The first hour is, well, I don't know where it went, but it's gone. And we normally have a bit of a break now so that everybody can grab a cuppa, grab a quick loo break, skin up, whatever you want to do. So we'll play a couple of tunes from our resident genius musician, Heath Dweft, and we'll be back in about 6 minutes, folks. So see you then.
Cool. Have me a drink. Yeah. How's it going, And?
All right, mate. We still go out live on Google, so
because you
just
like
mute
the way
till
you
the
are,
music
but
finishes, mate.
because I'm telling all your fools what I every hour of every day. But life is like a smoke. In the end, I'm gonna choke. So all I do is live my life from day to day. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, crease it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, poke it, roach it, smoke it, then you pass it to me. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, crease it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, poke it, roach it, smoke it, then you pass it to me.
Come on, baby girl, let's get it going on. I'ma hit the highway and do it my way. It ain't no game, girl, so I don't play games. I keep it up straight, right up in your face. So make your mind up, cause life is too short. I got the vest on, boy, put your belt on. Stop acting all cool like Kanye West, boy. You be riding through the wire and the camera get on fire. You don't want that, no, I don't want that, no. This goes out to pimps and chicks, so slow. Hit the backseat when you're doing the licking, kissing, squeezing. Do the damn thing, man.
You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, press it, stack up, burn it, pack it, roll. I want is you smoke, marriage, you and it. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, press it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll. I want is you smoke, marriage, you and it. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, when I wake up, burn it, pack it, roll. I want is marry Joanna to me. In the evening, when I'm stacking, burn it, pack it, roll. All I want is marry Joanna to me.
She's starting to wake up from the sleep, from all the lies they spread that run so deep. But I will lace no more. Who are they fighting for? It isn't me. But now I see there is a new world order, but we're not invited. So much blood and murder from the drones unsighted. World War III is haunting me. I've got to find a way to save my family. The human race has lost its way. We put our trust in science, but it's a soup. They used to be civilized, but we've been compromised. We're on a one-way train. We've got to break this chain. Starting to see we should be free, and the powers that be, they want a piece of me. Should I do what they say or tell them go away? What is the price for freedom that I just can't pay? The time has come to raise the bar, because we'll soon be facing a third world war. So let your voice be heard and let your heart decide to stand and fight for freedom while you still got time. Wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up. Stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up. Wake up, wake up.
All of the sheeple.
Wake up, wake up.
All of the sheeple.
Stand up, stand up.
All of the people.
Stand up, stand up.
All of the people.
Conspiracy they're fooling me. As I watch TV, they're manufactured.
Whoa, stop there. That's apologies for the idiot DJ. No, I'm not the real Slim Shady. I am a fake one. Thanks for being with us, folks. Tonight we've got Andrew Fletcher on with us doing an update on incline bed therapy. And this evening we did place an invite on Andrew's website and also on the Good evening, welcome back to Raconteurs News. Sorry for that, folks. I had my mic muted, as I so often do, but hey, there we go. Yeah, we've got Andrew Fletcher joining us tonight for an update on incline bed therapy. And Andrew placed an invite for any of his people who've got amazing benefits to come on and have a chat with us. So if anyone's got that link and wants to join us, now's your time to call in. So if you just click that link, you should be taken to the Google Hangout and you accept the terms and conditions and you will be live. So, you know, don't come on saying, I'm alive. Yeah, you'll be straight away live. So if anybody wants to come on, please do, because I'm sure people think we're mad talking about this, but I've got benefits. Jason said, I don't know how many times, I wouldn't still be here if it wasn't for the inclined bed, because it made a remarkable difference to him. So anybody wants to call in, you're more than welcome. But Andrew.
Yes.
Back to you, my friend.
Okay, I'm back. Well, we're talking about multiple sclerosis, and we've been talking about the circulation, and I'd only mentioned the blood circulation. What we should have talked about, and is relevant now, is that the cerebrospinal fluid circulates without the help of the heart. So what is driving cerebrospinal fluid around the body? Mm-hmm. You won't find any explanation for it in the science books, in the medical books. It just happens. In fact, I asked a top neurologist who operates on people with spinal cord injury. I said, I want you to tell me exactly how cerebrospinal fluid circulates. I don't want to know where it flows from, where it flows to. I want to know what the driving force is. He couldn't answer me. Now, that's the same problem in the trees. No one knows how trees circulate sap. Right? So no one knows how cerebrospinal fluid is circulating through your nervous system. Right? And the lymphatic system now is exactly the same. No help from the heart at all. So what's driving the lymphatic system? Again, it's posture and respiration. So the analogy where evaporation from the respiratory tract changes the blood density, through the nasal passages, it changes the cerebrospinal fluid density. Through the eyes, it changes the density of the fluids in the eyes, the saltiness of your tears, the saltiness of snot, saltiness of sweat, the saltiness in your mouth. Its density changes, you can taste. Right? In the old medical books, the Jewish medical ethics books, they used to place a pinch of salt under the tongue of a patient that was dying, and that was to keep them alive, to stop them from dying.
Yeah.
So just by changing the density of the fluids in the mouth under the tongue was sufficient. Now, if you want to administer a heart pill, apparently they dissolve them under the tongue. It's the fastest route.
It is, yeah.
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 Wow.
So that's mainlining straight into the cerebrospinal fluid.
Wow. I did see we got quite a debate going on about keeping the body alkaline in the YouTube chat while we were having that music break there. So it's just nice to know that we're even stimulating different discussions from the one that we're actually having on air.
Yeah.
Is that something you've looked at in any great depth, Andrew?
Alkaline diets? Not really. Not really. I mean, there's been a lot of interest in drinking lots of water, but again, you know, everything in moderation. If you wash out the salts, too much of the salt's gone out of your bloodstream. Again, that can affect your circulation. So if you're not replacing the salts, not good. You know, you have to keep that that electrolyte solution in your blood has to be right. So again, alkaline diet. I did read something on asparagus, eating lots and lots of asparagus. Apparently that's helped people with cancer.
Yeah, it doesn't have to make your pee taste funny,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, taste funny, smell
That's
funny.
funny. It's strange. That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it, Andy?
Was I?
No, God, come on, Paul. Keep up with the program. Have you not heard of urine therapy?
Yeah, you're not doing that shit as well.
No, just the urine.
No, just the urine, mate. The other stuff tastes a bit foul. No, it's something I tried years ago. I kind of felt a little bit better for it. I slipped out of the habit of doing it. I got kind of, what's the word? Absorbed in other things, and it just kind of slipped off my daily routine. But I got friends who do it, and have done it for years. And they absolutely swear by it. The only thing they say is do not do it all the time because it can get a little bit trippy. But then I know some people who'd be thinking, right, get this. I'm drinking notebook piss if it's going to make me a bit trippy.
The back to the cerebrospinal fluid and multiple sclerosis. Now, multiple sclerosis is where the myelin sheath breaks down for whatever reason and is visible as plaques under the scan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they get a diagnosis of MS. Yeah. So they get these lesions and they show up. Now, the lesions could be crystallized myelin. Now, myelin in its natural form and its operating form is liquid crystal, just like the LCD screens. It's exactly the same. Yeah. And it's the same in plants as well. Right. So if you do anything that interferes with that liquidity, then if it solidifies, it's going to be visible. So the premise in multiple sclerosis is to have the bed on an angle so that your CSF can keep circulating freely. And hopefully that will re-enable the myelin sheath. And in fact, we actually have had some fantastic results with multiple sclerosis over the years. But the really interesting thing is that a recent bit of research, I found that they were able to grow myelin figures. Right, that's what they label them as, myelin figures, in the albumin of eggs as a culture.
Oh.
Now here's the clincher for you, is that myelin figure can only grow on a vertical axis, cannot grow horizontally at all.
Mm.
And horizontally is that flatbed.
So there's even a clue there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also then that then relates to spinal cord injury, because people were saying that, you know, you're helping people with multiple sclerosis, but MS, it can be a bit hit and miss. You can get relapse and remitting stages, you know, even though the people you're helping, they've got primary progressive MS, which there's no relapse and remitting, and yet they can actually go back through MS the same way that they started. So I said, okay, then we'll try it with spinal cord injury. Oh, well, if you get one person with spinal cord injury, if it's a complete injury, 2 years post-injury, we'll listen. The first 3 people had tried it. Wow, what fantastic results. Bowel and bladder control returned, right? Sensitivity returned to the lower limbs. Sensitivity moved down from the armpits. One guy actually was able to write, and he was a tetraplegic, was able to write his name and address and telephone number on a piece of paper. And he could fill the paper and the pen.
Wow.
You know, John Carn gets out of his wheelchair and walks on Carlton Television News for the first time in 11 years. The video's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Didn't make it up, lads. It's there.
Yeah, I've seen
But
that.
then they turn around and say, well, you know, you need to do a study. Like,
What you're doing, Andrew, you're taking a lot of different complicated diseases or ailments and you're making it sound like it could be simple. So that means they're not going to get the revenue. But
yes.
That's what they're interested in, really. It's, you know, people like yourself who want to actually help people, they have no interest in what you're doing or anything, because it's it's sacrilegious to whatever it is they think they're doing. I mean, there's so much going on at the minute, but the medical side of all this, from being a kid, I always heard adults around me saying, they got cures for everything, they just don't tell you. And that's true. That's quite obviously true.
Well, I think, Andrew, you had the perfect illustration of it affecting revenue and what the response to that would be when you spoke to the Lullaby Trust, is it called?
Oh, they are called the Lullaby Trust now, yes. They were formerly called the Foundation for Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. But they've changed the name now to the Lullaby Trust. Yeah, I've become really concerned about people dying in the sleep, you know, adults dying in the sleep. And most of all, the children, the babies that pass away, you know, they never reach their first birthday, some of them. And they die in the sleep. So what's took these kids away? So I was invited to the home of Dr. Shireen Chandler from the Foundation for Sudden Infant Death, or the Lullaby Trust. And she's the senior research advisor for the charity. And it was at her home in London. I took my experiments, because I have little benchtop experiments which show my circulation theory. You don't have to put tubes up cliffs. You can do it on your desktop. Any kid in any school can do it. And I showed her and I explained how simply putting a baby on a flat bed would compromise the circulation, would slow everything down, would cause the heart to race, would cause the lungs to inflate and decrease rapidly, would then lead to fibrillation and other problems just by having the baby flat. And I added that baby in the womb is never flat. Irrespective of the mother's posture, that baby, because it's buoyant and its head's heavier, will always be tilted one way or another. Yeah. And it's gravity it's responding to. So, and the analogy I used as well was that you put the baby down on the bed and the baby cries, and you pick the baby up in your arms in an inclined position and the baby stops crying. And the scientists say that that's because it needs to be next to its mother. So you could get any Tom, Dick or Harry to pick that baby up and put it on an angle and it will stop crying. It's nothing to do with being close to the mom. Nothing being close to the dad. Yeah. So she turned around to me and she said, "My God," she said, "I think you've solved it." I said, "What do you mean by that? Do you think I've solved how water gets to the top of a tree?" She said, "No, I believe you've solved sudden infant death syndrome." And I was a bit taken back because I wasn't expecting that reaction. I was expecting the fob off. But she was open and she said, "Look, you know, we can work together and we can get this sorted out and do this and do that." But nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Well, she'd lose a 400 grand a year job, wouldn't she?
Yeah, but in all fairness, I don't think she would have. She didn't seem the sort of person that would have blocked it herself. But maybe the people further up the chain that stood to lose the most money certainly would.
Mm.
Yeah. But they said that, you know, if I can go and convince a university that I'm wrong and I'm right about circulation, yeah, and everything they've been teaching in school is wrong, yeah, about circulation, then maybe they would listen and conduct a study. But they know that's never going to happen.
I heard a guy that I'm going to try and get on the show very soon. He said recently in a panel discussion, a guy called Grant Cameron. He's a guy I greatly admire, a Canadian, and he said, yes, the paradigm is changing one funeral at a time.
Yes.
And it does seem awfully sad, but in order for this sort of development to be accepted, if you like, the keepers of the existing paradigm, they're not going to change their mind because it's been their life's work to get to where they are, and they know that they're right because they proved it with their sciencey experiment, and they're never going to accept that some guy who's an engineer can do 20 minutes thinking and work out how this is all wrong and just be telling the world about it and giving it for free. That undermines their whole ethos of their life. And I mean, it is so sad that it seems that that's the only way it's going to change. I mean, do you think that's the way it's going to go, Andrew?
Max Planck was the guy that wrote that. He said, you'll never defeat your opponent. You have to wait for them to die off. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Max
yeah.
Planck, thank
yeah.
you.
Unfortunately, it seems to be right. They just announced that the government's going to be spending, I think it's 60 million pounds or 600 million pounds or something on the NHS, which is going into research. It's big money. It's huge money. Yeah. So this protecting the research money tray is really important.
Yeah, I agree. That's what it all comes down to at the end of the day, is this money that doesn't exist. It's madness. It's absolute madness that people think those pieces of paper are worth anything. But I don't have a shortage of people who'd say to me, well, if it's worthless piece of paper, I'll take it all off you, you know. But it's the concept of this promising to pay for something as opposed to being able to pay for it in a society, an economy that is designed to take everything from us. What incentive have they got to actually have a nation of critical thinkers who are all well and, you know, well adjusted? They need this broken society to do whatever it is they think they're going to end up with, because I've never known so many different people who I've known all my life who never even look at any of this stuff seriously, but it's starting to affect family members and people who they know. You know, the amount of people who say, "Do you know anybody who can do the THC or the CBD?" I hear people having those conversations in shops. You know, so there's definitely that paradigm change. There's
Yes.
definitely kicking off.
Yeah,
Well,
but not quick enough.
No, maybe not. But there's a lot of confusion stuff going on as well. I mean, we're being diverted to look at all certain things. You know, there's people. You can see the division between Muslims and Christians, for want of a better word, or whites and Asians. You can see that people are trying to get something going there. And people have got to be able to look at that information and critically think it. But then you see the ones who get sucked into this, and they're singing the national anthem, Andrew, waving an Israeli flag. And I'm thinking, are these people confused, or are they missing something? And it's down to lack of information. And if people don't, I use it all the time. If you've got the internet, you can find out whatever you want and have loads of hits on it in 0.2 of a second. You could find out what could make you healthy. I'm guilty of what you brought up earlier, Andrew, where I've had knowledge of this for 18 months, something like that, and I've still not raised my bed. It's on my list of things to do. But I want to. I'm you know, after all this conversation, I'm off 2 weeks now. I'm going to devise something to see if I can do it with this bed. Otherwise, it might have to be a new bedtime or something like that. But it's you're going to bring that down to the simplicity of raising your bed 6 inches, and it could give you all those health benefits. I've got friends who suffer with MS at early stages, so that could be a massive benefit to her, and I'll be putting her straight in touch with this tonight. So I'll send her the website as well. If Andy can just paste it onto the thing, and then we can get other people to come and look at it, because I'm a big advocate of, you know, if you're talking bollocks, Andrew, let people come and show you that you talk bollocks. When you've got all the facts in front of you, what can they do? And that's exactly what I've done with everything that I work with. I've never said about this is how you do it. I've been left with questions about mortgages, about bills, all this stuff. But you can't get the answers from the people that you want. And when you know that they refuse to answer you, you know you're onto something.
Yeah.
I've copied that over for you, Paul. It's in the chat hanger. So I'd like to reiterate, anyone who's got the link to call in and wants to call in and tell us their experiences of incline bed therapy, please do so. We've been talking about what it does for sick people, Andrew, but I think we're missing a bit of a trick there, because I know a lot of our listeners are very loyal, and several of them will have heard the show we did with Tony Moran.
Yes.
Tony he just blew me away. Firstly, what a lovely guy.
Oh, he is. Absolutely.
If you get to hear this at any point, Tony, love you to come back on and have a chat with us, because he's become quite the philosopher lately, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. And again, the different line of thought, the different line of thinking.
That was kind of what I was thinking there when I was talking about that different way of thinking, and the way your thoughts become a lot clearer and more ordered. I mean, Tony, he started using incline bed therapy to give him a bit of an edge with his boxing career, and then aged 42 and homeless, he won a world title. How astonishing is that? We actually got him on the YouTube channel there, showing his belt off. I mean, it was on the radio at the time.
Over 12 rounds.
Yeah.
Andy Robb, yeah.
It was a hell of a fight, if you want.
It was. He didn't let up for 1 minute in all of those rounds, and he was as fit in round 12 as he was in round 1.
Yeah. So it's not just for healthy people. I mean, I've been trying to approach motorbike racers. it's very difficult because a bit like the elites, they seem to live forever. They seem to get far better medical care than we do. Obviously they do because they pay for it. They have the best doctors, the best surgeons, the best whatever. I'm sure if they get cancer, then they'll have access to cannabis oil to cure it if they want it. But motorcycle racers, they get incredible treatment, usually aimed at screwing the broken bones back together. I've tried to introduce several that I'm in contact with, but I haven't really had a response yet. There is a few more that I'm going to try and approach, because really I could see a point where you'd go to a motorbike racing meeting or a car race meeting, and all the motorhomes are parked on a little ramp to make sure they're all lined up at 5 degrees, because this would help those guys so much. Because one of the important things that we haven't mentioned yet is it does speed up recovery from bone and soft tissue injuries, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. When Tony Moran's hands after the fight, they were swollen, massively swollen. And the next morning he wakes up and his hands are normal. All the swelling's gone. He says that would normally take a week for that swelling to go down one day. We had a young girl actually with scarlatina. Her legs are all swollen and taut and really in a lot of trouble. Yeah, rash all over her body and crying in pain. And good friends of ours that they trusted me and tilted to bed. The prognosis was that it was going to be 5 to 6 weeks before she could expect any serious improvements in this condition. It was really bad, and by the end of the first week, it had completely gone. 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah. The more I hear from you about what people have experienced doing this, the more it blows me away. And I'd just like to say to everyone who's listening, who's been saying, yeah, I've been meaning to do this. If I was to give you a ticket to go on a cruise of I don't know, say for argument's sake, the Caribbean, go on a Caribbean cruise, and you really needed that rest, you'd snatch my hand off. You'd be on that ship like a rat up a drain pipe. But we give you some information that can improve your health. It can improve your healing from injuries, illnesses. I would say there's probably a fairly good chance it's going to boost your immune system.
Yes, it does.
It's going to make you sleep better. And the sleep that you do get will leave you feeling more refreshed when you wake up. And a subject that's probably known about by all men who've reached a certain age, you always wake up in the middle of the night busting for a pee. And it doesn't matter how much you try, you can't go back to sleep because you've got to go. Well, here's the news, folks. That rarely happens if you sleep on an inclined bed. Ricky over in Canada, I'm pretty sure if Ricky's not listening now, he'd be listening back to this, back to the podcast. He was saying he used to have to get up once, twice a night, every night without fail. And after 10 days of inclining his bed, he suddenly thought, hang on, I didn't get up last night. And he said, I've never got up since. He's back to go out on a regular basis. He doesn't go out anymore. And
there's an interesting reason for that, though. And on a normal flat bed, and this is everybody right across the board, around 3:30 in the morning, your body temperature, your core body temperature, will drop by 2 degrees. That's the flat bed, right? So around that time, if your temperature drops, you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also that's the time when most people will die in their sleep.
Oh.
Yes. So what me and my wife did, we measured our body temperature, our core body temperature, exactly the way they did in the science books, on the hour, every hour, yeah, mouth temperature, right? And we found that, and the graph's there on my website, that we didn't drop by 2 degrees. Both of us just went straight across on the graph line. There was no drop. So that proved that we'd maintained our metabolism and our body temperature. Now, to back this up, people with spinal cord injuries are like babies. They can't handle temperature changes.
All right.
Yeah, so they get really cold. And they'll go outside and they'll have three coats on when everybody's roasting. Can't maintain the body temperature. Again, the people who were helping with a spinal cord injury were able to go out in the wintertime with a shirt on. Just a t-shirt, no coat. So they were now able to control their own body temperature. Now, if you can maintain your own body temperature, you're less likely to get an infection, because that's our defense against viruses. When our body temperature plummets, that's when we're more susceptible to viruses. So you mentioned the immune system. If we put an astronaut in space where we took gravity away, their immune system breaks down. They're susceptible. They age 10 times faster than we do here on Earth. That's perfectly healthy people go into space, take gravity away, and they start aging 10 times faster than we do here on Earth. Their bones decalcify, their heart atrophies, their muscles atrophy. They're unable to walk when they get back to Earth. They get sight problems, psoriasis. People that have never had psoriasis go into space and find they've got psoriasis. Yeah.
Wow.
So NASA are paying $18,000 for you to stay in bed and have your head down and with your feet up in the air for 3 months. And they're doing that so they can reproduce the damaging effects of microgravity in space. So they're using bed rest to bring about the 10 times aging factor. Now, they've also done it with flatbeds. So they find that the head down and the feet up is worse. So they'll pay you 18 grand.
Wow. Well, what I was saying about giving people the cruise ticket and they'd snap your hand off if they thought they needed a rest or needed to be more rested or recovering from whatever it is they're recovering from. But when you tell them about this, they're like, the reason I have told most people that I know is because they come out with this peculiar phrase, "My God, you look well. What have you done?"
Yes.
And so I've got now, so I say, "Well, you don't want to know." And they go, yeah, I do. I said, "No, you don't want to know." And kind of just to make them really ask for it, because it's pointless telling them, because so many people, you'll say to them, "Well, this is what I did. Look, I put a couple of blocks of wood under the head of my bed." What? I said, "Oh, yeah," and then explain how it works. And why don't you try it? Well, it's just anecdotal, isn't it? And at that point, you've just got to turn and just walk away and just say, "Okay, mate, carry on. Do what you're doing."
You see, all of those clinical studies that have been placebo and double-blinded, yeah, placebo-based and double-blinded. There's now a big question about the validity of the research, because it's all been biased apparently, and most of the results in these drug trials have been fixed and fabricated. So now we're in trouble because the peer review system appears to be in severe decline, because people are seeing straight through the BS again, which we started off on the program. Yeah, so the validity that the peer review system is supposed to attach to these results is becoming more questionable than the anecdotal evidence that's from real people telling real stories about themselves, who incidentally have never been paid a penny. They've done it
Amazing.
because they want to help people. I'm going to have to let my dog in because I've got these noisy curtains on the.
Oh, thank
So
God
I'm
for
just
that, Andrew. I thought it was one of you got a noisy chair that needed oiling.
No, it's a bloody dog. Yeah.
Sorry, had you got your hand up there, Paul? Did you want to say something, man? No. Yeah. Look, anyone who's watching on YouTube, if you look over Andrew's shoulder behind him, oh, it's moved now. There was one of his gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous show bull terriers sat behind him on the sofa. But it appears he's moved on now. But oh, your dogs, Andrew. I mean, I love bull terriers anyway, but they are absolutely gorgeous, aren't they?
I love them to bits. Yeah, they're a bit of a handful though when you're trying to talk on the radio.
Mm. So
Yeah.
we've got about 15 minutes of the show left, Andrew. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to cover? I mean,
Well, yeah, you talked about the immune system, and we got a group of patients with end of life full-blown AIDS in Botswana, and chronic diarrhea, grey skin, very sickly looking, and nothing can be done for these people. Just a matter of time before they passed away. This guy over in Botswana tilted the beds, and one by one they started to improve, and the diarrhea stopped, and the skin went back to normal, healthy colour. They got out of bed and they needed help, a little bit of physiotherapy to get them going again. And they went home, and that's been nearly 2 years now, and they're still doing fine. Full-blown AIDS without drugs.
oh, here's a thought. So we've now got the Cancer Act making it illegal to tell anyone that you can cure cancer. Do you think, in light of what you've discovered, they might have to bring out an AIDS Act as well, Andrew?
Yeah. I think Luke has AIDS.
Certainly a flathead act.
Luke has AIDS. Yeah.
Well, for me, I think probably a way to get more of my friends to do it would be as if they actually made a law against it. You'd probably get a lot more of them be prepared to actually.
You might have something there, yeah. I mean, I look back into the sweating sickness as well, back in the Tudor period, because that was an interesting time, and indeed many of the plagues that have visited us over the years, taking away millions of people. But the sweating sickness, they found that if they placed two people by the side of the bed, presumably prevented them from lying down to go to sleep, they survived. If they lay down, they were dead by morning, documented Tudor period. So again, posture played an important role in helping them to survive the sweating sickness. And there's photographs as well now that a TB group of boys that have obviously been affected by TB, or indeed they were trying to prevent TB in America, on top of a boys' home, what would you call it? The sanatorium? Is it the tuberculosis sanatorium?
Yeah.
They're all on the top of this roof. Every single bed was inclined. Every single bed was inclined. Now, why were they doing that?
Yeah.
The nurses were around the influenza outbreak in the First World War. Many of the nurses were exposed to more influenza virus than any of the patients in the ward. Why weren't they getting ill? Because they were too busy to lie down and rest. If they lay down and got their feet up, 9 times out of 10, they'd get the illness. But they just kept going. And because they kept going, they didn't get that drop in temperature, and therefore they didn't get that access point for the virus. It's just, I know it sounds too simple. It can't possibly be that simple. It certainly needs investigating.
Andrew, if there's one thing that I've discovered in the last 10 years is if it isn't simple, it's not right. And that is what a lot of people, it's got to be complicated because somebody else who's cleverer than me must know what really is going on, because there's so many people who don't believe in themselves. I mean, I for a long time kept going, are you mad? Are you mad that your gas is free? You know, I kept second guessing myself, but all I could read was the literature and the legislation and what it meant and the concept of it. And it meant that I couldn't pay for it. I couldn't do it as a creditor. I had to do it a certain way. When I started to do that, that's when nobody wanted to talk to me ever again. You know, British Gas's legal team refused to talk to me, because if they let anything out, their company is going. You know, a £2.3 billion profit these people made, and they're making it off people who some can't afford to put food on the table. It's wrong. And I've given that information out for nothing, because people have been under this jackboot long enough. And it's the same with the medical stuff as well. So I doff the cap to me, Andrew.
Incidentally, I had my gas bill come through, the last one. It was £3.50 for 3 months.
And I bet you bloody tried to pay it and made the national debt £3.50 worse. Unmute your mic, Andy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I'd got mine muted because, sorry, I was trying to mute yours, but you kept unmuting it, Paul, because Andrew was feeding back through your speakers.
Okay. Want me to turn my speakers?
I was having computer trouble. That's when you said, did you want to say something? Everything had froze. Everything was locked up.
Oh, crikey. Oh, sorry about that, mate. No, I was just trying to say that I can vouch for Andrew's gas bill, because he actually showed me it when I went down to visit him. He was very proud of his I think it was even less than £3, the last one you showed me.
No, that's been my record. £3.50 is my record.
Did you not show him the joint gyro credit slip that was attached to it?
No.
Oh,
it was a bills of exchange free weekend, Paul.
There's never a bills of exchange free weekend unless you never buy anything.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
so where do we go from here, and you know, how do we get the NHS to realise that they can reduce the burden on their services? Burden's probably not the right word, but the overburden on their services is probably a better word, simply by avoiding those flatbeds. You know, how many of these conditions can we wrap up into one umbrella and call them flatbed syndrome?
I get exactly where you're coming from, Andrew. But the way I see it, the problem is there is no political will to save money in the NHS. Because if there was, it wouldn't be top heavy with bloody managers instead of people who can actually do the jobs that help people.
Yeah.
And also, the people who control the budgets are ultimately in the same little club as the people who own the pharmaceutical companies, and can't put your golfing buddy out of business, can you? Or your private island buddy, or whatever they do, these people. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, man.
You know, it's all about money and greed, and but money's fictitious, as we pointed out all the way along. But it's a means of control, and while we keep going along with that, we're never going to get rid of this this absolute certainty in the NHS that pharmaceutical drugs is the only way. Because, for Christ's sake, they were doing homeopathic remedies, but now they've stopped that on the NHS.
Yeah. Well, how many people have been?
Because it bloody works.
Yes. How many people have been to the home of somebody who's deceased and helped to carry a bag filled with drugs to the bin? How many people? You know, they've been taking pills like donkeys eating strawberries. And the end result is they're still in the grave.
Yeah, I mean, we're told that we're going to tax you to death on alcohol, and we're going to tax you to buggery on tobacco. And if they legalize cannabis, which would probably be the worst thing that ever happened to it, because they'll give Monsanto control of it, and then it won't be any good. It just really beggars belief. You know, where they're taking us.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, look at Jason. Jason's in the situation he's in because the hospital's buggered it up. And we're just hearing it all the time. It just beggars belief, Andrew. It really does. Right, so
people are still voting, doesn't it? Because they're not going to change anything. We've got to go back to basics with this one, I'm afraid.
yeah, but there's so many people with their eyes supposedly wide open, saying, "Oh, we've got to vote for Jeremy Corbyn because we've got to get the Tories out because they think Corbyn will do better." I remember that same enthusiasm for Tony Blair.
Yeah, the system's got to go.
Almost. I thought Labour would be better than the Tories, but they turned out just as bad as the Tories.
Probably worse.
Same. They're the same.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, the quote Maggie Thatcher: "What was your best achievement? New Labour."
Yeah. It just goes to show how long my mum and dad voted Labour because they were working. It was the working man's party, and I'll always vote Labour. That's what I always heard. And then I remember hearing mates saying, "Well, I vote Labour because my dad did," and I'm thinking that's not. You can't have that kind of an attitude with what's going on now, because we've never been in such a dangerous, precarious position as to lose everything. Yes, we've been through some horrible times with wars that have been created by these people, but there's no excuse. If you've got anything that you care about in this world, be it yourself, be it your wife, family, kids, grandkids, you've got to start looking and researching and stop waiting for somebody to save you, because you can only save yourself.
And the first step towards that, if you haven't already done it, is to get some blocks of wood out the garden or the garage or the loft, or if you've got any old medical books lying about, use them instead and prop your bloody bed up by 6 inches. It's as simple as that. And if you haven't done it yet, when you do it and you get the benefits from it, you'll want to thank me. But you really don't want to thank me. You want to thank this guy here. You want to thank Andrew. Last word to you, Andrew.
Yeah, we need your help as well, because if you're going to get around eventually to trying this, we need the feedback. That body of evidence that we're building is really important. It's going to help a lot of people end up landing on the page through search engines. They're not going to be looking for incline beds. They don't know about incline beds, but they might be looking for somebody who's recovered from a lung anomaly, somebody who's recovered from sleep apnea, or somebody who's had improvements from Parkinson's disease or spinal cord injury or multiple sclerosis. Those are the search terms. So the more of those search terms we get on the website, the more people are likely to find out about the incline bed. They're not going to be looking for incline bed therapy. As far as the majority of people out there, it doesn't exist. It's never existed. Why should we ever question a flat bed?
Thank you, Andrew. That was, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you, mate. You're a man that I can't recommend too highly to people. I know quite a few people have reached out to me for your contact details for other radio shows. And if there's any radio host listening, Andrew's a great guest to get on. He's not going to leave you stuck for words, even if you don't know anything about incline bed therapy. He's just a fascinating guest. And I want to say thank you, Andrew. Thanks, Paul. You've been great tonight. Thanks to Jason. Man, you got some big balls. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll be back next week. We don't know whether it'll be Monday or Tuesday because we've got nothing planned, but we'll let you know through the usual routes. Thanks, folks. Good night.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on there, and thanks, Paul.
Cry out anymore. Time stands still as I gaze in her waters. She eases me down, touching me gently with the waters that flow past my boat on the river. So I won't cry out anymore. Oh, the river is deep. The river, it touches my life like the waves on the sand. And all roads will lead to tranquility base, where the frown on my face disappears. Take me down to my boat on the river, and I won't cry out anymore. Oh, the river is deep. The river, it touches my life like the waves on the sand. And there's a lead to tranquility base, where the frown on my face disappears. Take me down to my boat on the river, and I won't cry out anymore. Take me down to my boat on the river, and I won't cry out anymore. And I won't cry out anymore. And I won't cry